In this video, I will look at inheritance or examples of inheritance, as well as polymorphism, and go in a bit more on how we can save data of classes into files and also use the ArrayList class and the StringTokenizer class in order to get some data from a file again. So what I want to do now is to start off with a simple class. So I'm going to go into my Java folder. You can see I've just created a new application, and the application name is Inheritance Example, and it's open in basically the class that has the main method. So I'm going to go and create a new file. So you can just click there on create a new file. I'm going to go to Java class and say next. I'm going to call this class ship. Okay, so there's a simple class ship. And this class will have a few fields. So we're going to have, important with when creating classes or normal classes where we're going to create objects from, is to actually go and create the fields private, or make the fields private, and then all of the methods public in order to access those fields. So we're going to say private string name, the name of the ship, and we're going to have a private string year built, the year in which the ship was actually built. Then a simple constructor will be, remember, the constructor must be public and it must be the same name as the class, so it's going to be ship. And I'm going to pass in a name, and I'm also going to pass in the year that it's been built. And then what we normally do is to just set our variable that we defined at the top to this variable that was passed in. Same with the year built one. So in order to reference our specific variable, we're going to say this.name, this referring to the object that you're busy building. This object's name field will then be name. And this dot year built will be year built. Okay, so now we're setting our name and year built fields to this name and year built that was passed through. Then the next one, we need to build, or we need to create some getters and setters. So we're going to say, and for all of those we need public fields in order, public methods in order to get to these private fields. So we're going to say private string get name, and then we're going to return the name variable. Then we're going to say public string get year built, and we're going to say return the year built. Control and spacebar will help you a bit with that. Okay, so it's the get name and the get year built. Then we can also have the setters there, so we're going to say public void set name, passing in a string name. And then basically we're going to set our name again to this name that was passed through. So again, I'm going to say this.name equals the name that was passed through. The other setter will be public void set year built, also passing in some string for the year that ship has been built. And then I'm going to say this dot year built equals this year built that was passed in. And then the next thing that we can do is to add a toString method here. So I'm going to say public string toString. And by doing this, I'm overriding the toString method of the superclass, which is the class object. So if I don't have extends anything here, it means that I'm deriving from the class called object. And the object's toString method basically just prints out some hash codes, which we do not understand if you're calling this toString method. So in this toString method, we're just basically returning a string to show what is saved currently in these two variables. So I'm going to say return the name of the ship, let's say name of ship, and then indicating the name. And maybe go there and saying, well, let's go to a new line again, and then showing the year. Let's just say year built, and then just showing the year built. And maybe we're going to do something after that later on. So I'm just going to add a new line character there as well again. So it's, when we print it out, it's going to say name of ship and then show the name, and year built and show the year built. And now I just want to add another method as well here. So later on we'll see where we're going to use this method. But for this method, I want to have a to-file method, so that I can come back to this superclass, this ship class, and actually print something out to a file. So I'm just going to have a return statement here that says I want the name plus a comma plus the year built. Okay, so in the file we will basically have a name, and then the name will be separated by a comma with the year built, and we're going to build on this in order to save to a file later on. So we're going to come back to the to-file method. And this is then it basically for the ship class. The next class we will do is then the CruiseShip class, which will inherit from this specific class. So again, I'm going to add a new class, a new Java class. So you can either right click there on that specific folder and say new Java class, or you can just click on the new button there at the top. So I'm going to say new Java class, and this class will be called CruiseShip. Okay, and just say finish, and then you can see there's CruiseShip. Now in the CruiseShip, I'm going to say extends, and I'm going to say ship there, which means now we are inheriting from the ship class, and what we basically inherit or will be able to use is all of the public fields and methods that's part of the ship class now. So we won't have direct access to the name and the year built here, but because of these public methods, we will be able to retrieve the name or set the name. Okay, so this is basically just basic inheritance, and the extends keyword is also, there's also an is a relationship, which means that CruiseShip is a ship. Okay, so let's do a few fields here as well. I'm just going to use one there. I'm going to say a private int, and I'm going to call it maximum number of passengers, and that's the only field that we want to add that is not part of this ship. So when we inherit, then we basically, when we create an object of CruiseShip or CruiseShip, then it means that in memory we will have this variable max number of passengers. We will also have these two variables in memory. So I'm only adding to the CruiseShip that is not part of ship at this stage, that I want to add to that specific CruiseShip class. So now let's create the constructor quickly. So I'm going to say public CruiseShip, the same name as the class. And now this constructor here accepts the name and the year built. So at least we should also accept a name and the year built. And then we can add this extra variable that we've added now, which is an int. So we're going to say int max number of passengers when we create the new object. Okay, and then basically what we need to do now is to set the name and the year built to those two variables. So what we can do is to just call the ship constructor that we've got here and then set the name and the year built there. So I'm going to say super, passing in the name and passing in the year built. So what this will do now, it will take this name and the year built and pass it to the constructor here, which will set the name and which will set the year built. And then the next part that I need to do in this constructor will be to say, well, this dot max number of passengers will be this max number of passengers that was passed through. And now all three of those variables are set in memory. Okay, and then I'm going to set up a getter and a setter for this one, because we already have the getters and the setters for name and year built. We've inherited those. So we have direct access to get name and get year built, set name and set year built. So we're going to say public int get max number of passengers, and we will return the max number of passengers. And then the setter will be public void set max number of passengers, and then we will passing in, let's just call it max, the maximum number of passengers. So then we're going to set this dot maximum number of passengers equals this max value that was passed through. So there's the getter and the setter for max number of passengers. We already have the getter and the setter for name and year built. Then the next thing that we want to do is then again to go and create the same as we did in ship, to create the toString and the toFile method. So the toString method, public string toString. If I create this toString method now, it means that I am overriding the toString method of this class's superclass, which means I'm overriding this toString method. Okay, so basically what we want to do now is to return the name of the ship again. So I'm just going to say name of ship, and I'm going to call the getName method now in order to get the name of the ship. And then I'm going to have a new line character there. So go to new line, and then the next part that I want there is the maximum number of passengers. And then to get the maximum number of passengers, we'll just be calling max number of passengers. And then I'm going to add a new line character again. Okay, so what we could have done also in this toString was to say, using this toString, saying name of ship and then the name, year built, then the year built, and then instead of setting a new line character there, we could leave out the new line character there and then just add, or just call here. We can call then the toString method of the superclass by calling super.toString, which will have all of that, and then we can just add name of, or maybe just maximum number of passengers. Little spelling mistake there. Okay, so it's up to you what you want to do in this toString. I'm just going to show the name of the ship and then the maximum number of passengers. Then for that toFile method, I'm going to have public string toFile. I'm going to override that one, so I'm going to have public string toFile, and you can see it will want us to add the override notation, which means that we are now overriding this toFile method there. But I want to use that method, so I'm going to say return super.toFile, which will basically return the name, a comma, and then year built. And then to that, I'm going to add a comma, and I'm going to add this one field extra there, which is the maximum number of passengers. So now when I call the toFile method, it's going to have name, comma, year built, comma, maximum number of passengers. Okay, so the next class that we need to build, so we've got ship, we've got CruiseShip. Let's add another one. We're going to say new Java class, and we're going to call this class cargo ship. Now the cargo ship will also extend a ship, because a cargo ship is also a ship. So we're going to say extends ship, and then add a one field like we did in the CruiseShip. So we're going to add one field there, which will be private int cargo capacity in tonnage. So we're just going to say cargo capacity in ton. And then we have a constructor for this one, so it's going to be public and then the same name as the class, cargo ship. And then again, we're going to do the same. Because we are inheriting from ship, we want to use that constructor to set those two fields. So we're going to use the name and the year built again. So we are going to have string name and string year built. And then for the last one, we will have this cargo cap or cargo capacity in tonnage. So we're going to have int there, cargo cap in ton. Then again, we're going to do the same as in the cruise ship. I want to pass this name and year built to the superclass constructor there. So I'm going to call super, passing in the name, passing in the year built. And then those two fields are set in memory. So now we just need to set this last field. So I'm going to say this dot cargo capacity in tonnage equals this one that was passed through, which is cargo cap in ton. And then the constructor is all set up, which means now if I create an object of this class, it's going to pass the name and the year built to the superclass constructor, which will set the name and the year built. And then it will set the cargo capacity in tonnage that was passed through to that cargo capacity in tonnage. Okay, so the next part will be to create the getters and the setters for this one. So we're going to have public string get cargo capacity in tonnage, and we're going to return cargo capacity in tonnage. That's not a string, that should be an int that we're returning. Did I do it the same there? Yeah, okay. So in get cargo capacity in tonnage, we're returning the int, and then we're going to use this create the setter quickly. So it's just set cargo capacity in tonnage, and then passing in an int with let's say capacity. Then this one will be this dot cargo capacity in tonnage equals this capacity that was passed through. Okay, so this is a very small class. So we've got the cargo capacity in tonnage, its getter and setter, and we're setting everything nicely in the constructor. And then we need the toString method again. So we're going to say public string toString. Again, this one is now overriding the superclass toString method, and we're going to say return for us again name of ship, in order to get the name, I'm going to call the getName method. Remember, because of inheritance, I've got direct access to the getName method in the ship class. So there's the getName method, which will return the name. And then I'm going to add to that a new line. And then we will have cargo capacity in tonnage, and then show this cargo capacity in tonnage. And let's just add a new line character there again. Okay, and that's the toString method. Then we also need that toFile method again. So we're going to say public string toFile. Again, it's the same as the superclass. So I'm overriding that method and replacing it with my new method. So I'm going to say return super.toFile. Super.toFile again will run this toFile method, which will have name, comma, year built. And then I'm going to add to that a comma and then this cargo capacity in tonnage. And that's it then for these three classes. If you save, you should not have any errors. And then these classes are set up. So we're going to go now into this main method and see how can we create a nice working application by using these classes that we've created now. Okay, so in this class, in the inheritance example, in the main method is where everything starts in an application. So I'm going to use these classes now in order to do a nice application here. So the first thing that I want to do is to start a whole menu system. So I'm going to create a new method. I'm going to say public static string menu. So this class will basically return, or this method will basically return a string that will be the menu of options that I want to display. So I'm going to say string menu equals welcome to the ship. Let's take a capital S there, to the ship application. And I'm going to add a new line character so it goes over to the new line. Then let's just get rid of this error quickly. So I'm going to say return menu. Okay, so we're going to have right at the start, welcome to the ship application, going to the new line. And then I'm going to say, please choose an option below. And then go to the new line again. And then I'm going to display the options. So option number 1 will be to create a new cruise ship. And then go to the new line again. Then option number 2 will be to create a new, let's say, cargo ship. Adding the new line character, going to the next line. And then number 3 will be to see all cruise ships. New line character again. And then number 4 will be see all cargo ships. Going to a new line again. Then number 5 will be search for a ship by name. And then go to the new line again. And then the last option, 6, will be to exit the application. And that's basically my whole menu. So I'm going to use this to display the menu, or this is the text for the menu. And then when I use the J option pane, then I can just display the menu, and then the user can make a choice. So we'll get to that part now. So in order to use the J option pane, I need an import statement at the top. So I'm going to say import javax.swing.star. What we'll also need here is java.input.output.star. So that's just for saving data to the files. And then we're also going to use the scanner class. So I'm going to use java.util.star as well as the ArrayList class that's part of the util package. So these few import statements necessary right at the top. Okay, so in the main method now, we can start showing this menu. So what I want to do is to start off with a character. I'm going to say character selected equals, and I'm going to start it off with a 1, just so it will get into the loop. So I'm going to have a loop there to run while the selected value is not equal to 6. Because if it's equal to 6 there, you see we want to exit the application. Okay, so basically after that while loop, we can call system.exit and then passing in the 0 value there so that the application will exit if the loop exits. Okay, so if the selected value is not equal to 6, I can go and say selected should be, going to the J option pane, dot show input dialog. And this input dialog will basically be that menu dot character at position 0. Now there's the 0. I just want to get this whole J option pane there correct. There we go. So it will be the J option pane that will show the menu of choices. Then the user makes the choice, and that choice that the user makes will be, we will take the character on that string, because the J option pane returns a string. We will get the character at position 0 that the user selected, and then that character will be placed in selected. Okay, now we've got the selected value. It will either be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or a 6, or maybe something else. If it's not a 6, we will keep on repeating. So I'm just going to use a switch statement here to pass in that selected value. Okay, there we go. So now we can test for the selected values. So if the case is 1, so if the user typed a 1, then we can do something and then break. So we'll come back to these choices later on. Let's just get back there. If the case is 2, then we will do something and then break. If the case is a 3, again we will do something and then we will break. If it's a 4, do something and break. If it's a 5, do something and break. And then if it's a 6, we're going to show J option pane, show message dialog. First argument null just means the pop-up will be in the middle of the screen, and then the second argument what you want to show to the user. So we're just going to say something like, thanks for using the application and then maybe say bye-bye. Okay, so that's option number 6, and then obviously after option number 6, the while loop will not run anymore and it will exit the application. Okay, so then we break as well, and then for the default, so if there's anything else but a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, then we can also just show a J option pane dot show message dialog. Null again for the first argument, and then the text that we want to display. So we can just say, please choose a valid option. Okay, and that's our menu system. So this while loop will keep on running while this selected value is not equal to 6, and every time it runs, it pops up and asks the user these menu options, or give the user the menu options. The user makes a selection. We get the character that was typed. If it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're going to do that now. But if it's a 6, we will say thanks for using the application. And then the next time the while loop runs, it will not enter the while loop, so we will exit the application. On the default part, if it's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, we will just say, please choose a valid option. So we can quickly run it, see how it runs. There we go. So there's the options. I can say 1 and it will still run. I can say 2 and it will still run. I can say 3. I can say 4. I can say 5. If I say anything else, let's say an 8, please choose a valid option. And if I say 6, thanks for using the application, bye-bye. Oh, and it did not exit. Let's just quickly just check the error quickly there. I've got not equal to a character 6 there. Okay. Let's just run it again. If I run it again, if I click on 6 now and say, okay, thanks for using the application, and the application stops. Okay, so that's fine now. That one should be a character 6. All of these should be characters. So this is the menu system. Now for the next part, we need to go and see the different options. So the first option is to create a new cruise ship. Now, in order for us to be able to add things to this, we need to create an array list. So at the top, I'm going to create a new array list. I'm going to say array list. Let's make it private static array list. And the array list will be of type ship. it ships. So basically, we're going to use one array list where we're going to save cruise ships as well as cargo ships. Both objects of cruise ship and cargo ship can be saved in this array list of type ship because they are subclasses of class ship. So this is very important. One thing that we call polymorphism here is that a class can take or some things can take many forms, which means I'm taking a ship array list, but I'm saving cruise ships and cargo ship objects in it. And that's allowed in Java because the cruise ship and the cargo ship both inherits from ship. Okay, so let's set up that variable there. I'm going to say ships equals new array list of type ship, and then the array list is set up correctly. Okay, so now when we choose number 1, create a new cruise ship, we can go and create a method for that. So we're going to call create a method public static, let's say void. We're not going to basically do anything else, but we're not going to return a value, so it's going to be public static void new cruise ship. Okay, so that's the method. Now we want to create a new cruise ship. So in order to create a cruise ship, what do we need? We need the name of the ship, we need the year built, and the maximum number of passengers of a ship. So we can go there and ask all those questions to the user. So we're going to say string name equals JOptionPane dot show input dialog, and we'll ask that question. So we're going to ask, please enter the name of the ship, and then the user will supply the name. And then we can go and say, well, we want the year built, the year that this ship was built. So we're going to say JOptionPane again dot show input dialog, please enter the year the ship was built. And then the last thing that we need there, I think that's an integer, cruise ship will be the maximum number of passengers. So let's call it max number passengers equals again JOptionPane dot show input dialog. We want to get input from the user, and we're going to ask the user, please enter the number of, or the maximum number of passengers. And now you can see that this JOptionPane returns a string, and we basically need an integer value there. So there's two ways of doing this. We can either make this one a string and keep it like that, and then when we pass it in, we convert it back to an integer. Okay, so now we can create the object because we've got the name, we've got the year built, and we've got the maximum number of passengers. So now we can actually start creating the cruise ship. So we're going to say cruise ship, let's just call it ship, equals new cruise ship. And now this constructor of cruise ship first accepts the name, then the year built, then the maximum number of passengers as an int. Okay, so first the name, we've got the name variable there, then the year built, and then this maximum number of passengers, but that must be an int now. So we can just say integer dot parse int to create or to convert that string to an integer, and we're going to pass in max number of passengers. And then our cruise ship object has been created. So what will happen? This constructor will take in the name, the year built, and the maximum number of passengers, call the superclass constructor in ship, set the name and the year built field, and then set this field. Okay, so after creating the cruise ship object, we can add that object now to our ships array or array list that we've got at the top. So I'm going to say ships.add, and I'm going to add this ship object. Okay, and then our new cruise ship has been created. And then inside of number 1, we can go and call new, we call it cruise ship, new cruise ship. And then that method will allow us to add a new ship to the ships array list. Okay, so option number 1 is done. We can create a new cruise ship. Now let's create a new cargo ship. So I'm going to do the exact same thing again. So I'm just going to copy there. And I'm going to paste that method. But now it will be new cargo ship. I still need the name. I still need the year built. But in the cargo ship, I need to use the cargo capacity in tonnage. So that one will just be cargo capacity in tonnage. And then when I'm passing it in there, it should also be cargo capacity in tonnage. And then obviously the text should be, please enter the cargo capacity in tonnage. And then this should now be a new cargo ship. So it's going to be cargo ship there and cargo ship there. And then we've got a new cargo ship. So we ask for the name, the year built, the cargo capacity in tonnage, and then we pass in the name, the year built, and the cargo capacity in tonnage to build a new cargo ship. And you can see also going to the ships and adding the ship. So it's two different objects that we're adding to the same array list, and that we call polymorphism. Okay, so now at option number 2, we're going to say new cargo ship for that method. Okay, option number 3 now will be to see all cruise ships. So let's create a method for that as well. So we're going to have a public method, public static void, and we're going to call it see cruise ships. Now in this method, we need to run a for loop and then setting up some sort of a string variable that we can display to the user. So I'm just going to call it data and then start it off as nothing. And then when we run the for loop, I'm going to say integer I equals 0, I less than, and remember we want to run the for loop through this ships array list. So we're going to say ships.size, which will give us the size of that specific array list, which will be the number of ships that we've currently got stored in there. So ships.size, we're going to go from 0 to the number of ships. So we're running through every element in the ships array. Now remember, in this ships array list, we've got two types of objects now. We've got cruise ship objects and we've got cargo ship objects. So I must first find out on which object am I currently working. So I'm going to use an if statement in this for loop to say if ships.getI, which will refer to either a cruise ship or a cargo ship. And then I'm going to use the instance of operator to check whether that ship's object that I've got there is, in this case, cruise ship, is in this case a cruise ship. So we're going to say cruise ship. So I'm just testing in the for loop while running through every element in the ships array list. I'm testing if that object that I'm currently at is a cruise ship object. So if it is a cruise ship object, then I want to add it to this data variable so I can show it to the user. So then I'm going to say data equals data plus ships.getI, which will get then the cruise ship object. And then I want to call the toString method. Maybe we can add a new line character there as well, just to go to a new line. So every ship will then be in a new line again. But I'm running the toString method. So in CruiseShip, running the toString, let me just see, we are in CruiseShip, yeah? The toString method will print out the name of the ship, and the maximum number of passengers. Okay, and then after the for loop, we can actually just display this to the user. So we can say JOptionPane dot show message dialog, null for the first argument in the middle of the screen, second argument what you want to show to the user. So I'm going to say cruise ships maybe add 2 new lines, and then I'm going to show the data variable. Okay, so that's C cruise ships. Simple method. So we can go now to option number, that was option number 3. And we're going to call that method C cruise ships. Okay, then option number 4 will be to see all the cargo ships. So I'm going to copy this method, basically the same thing. Now instead of saying see cruise ships, we're going to say see cargo ships. Still going to have the data, still going to run through that array list, but now I'm testing for cargo ships. And then say data equals ships.getToString, which will basically run the toString method of the cargo ship class. And then we're going to print out cargo ships plus the data. So if we go to number 4, then it will be C cargo ships. Then option number 5 is to search for a ship by its name. So let's create a method for that one as well. So we'll have a method public static void C, let's call it get ship by name. So get ship by name, and then we're going to ask the user for the name in this method and just check if that ship exists, and then if it exists, we're going to display it to the user. So I'm going to start off with a position variable, which I'm going to set to -1. So later on in this method, we're going to test if the position is -1, it means that we did not find that specific ship by its name. So here we're going to ask now the user to give us the name that he's searching for. So I'm going to say JOptionPane dot show input dialog, please enter the name of the ship you are searching for. So then the user types the name of the ship, and then we can go and test. Running through the for loop again, integer I equals 0, I less than, it's called ships was the array list dot size. So we're running through every element in the array list, every ship in the array list, searching for this ship with this specific name. So then we're going to test if ships.getI gets me the object, either a cruise ship or a cargo ship. Calling the getName method gives me the name of the cargo ship or the cruise ship. So then we can just go and say dot equals ignore case. So let's say the user started with saved the ship with a capital letter for the name, and now it's searching for a lowercase. So just to make sure that we basically ignore the case when we search for it. So we're going to go to ships.getI.getName, which returns the name of the ship in the array list that we're currently at, and we're testing if that's equal to this name that was passed through, or that the user typed now for the ship. Okay, so if it is true, if we found that specific name or that ship with that specific name, then we're going to say position will be this position that the I is currently at. So if the ship was found at position 2, then POS will have the value of 2. And now after the for loop, we can just go and test if this position is not equal to -1. If it's not equal to -1, it means that we have found it and it's at this position. Okay, so if it's not equal to -1, we're going to say JOptionPane dot show message dialog, null in the middle of the screen. Then the second argument, we're going to say info of ship maybe we can add or put a colon there, and maybe go to a new line, and then we can go say something like ships.getI, which will get the object, dot get name, plus we can go to a new line. You can also call the toString method here, but let's just show the name there, and then we can go, not I, sorry, should be that position now that we saved, and then here it's going to be ships.getI, not getI, get position dot toString. Okay, so basically if the position is not -1, it means that we found that ship. Let's just say info of ship, and then show the name of the ship, then go to a new line, and then have the toString method. Okay, so if the position is not -1, we found it, we print it out to the screen. The else then will be if that one has not been found, we can just show a JOptionPane again, dot show message dialog, null for the first argument, and the second argument our message, which will be the ship does not exist in the database. And that's it for this method. So get ship by name, user types the name, running through the for loop, testing if there's a ship with that name, saving the position if there is, and if the position is not equal to -1, then it means that ship has been found at that position, and we're passing in that position to the ArrayList to get the name and then the toString method. If it's not been found, we print out the ship does not exist in the database. So this was option number 5. So get ship by name can be called at option number 5, get ship by name. Okay, so now this application should now work, but the problem we have now, if we run it quickly, I can create a new cruise ship. Let's say the cruise ship's name is Johan, and the year was 1980, and the maximum number of passengers is 36. Okay, so I've created a new cruise ship. So if I click on 3 there to see all of the cruise ships, I can see the ship there. So it's been saved in the ArrayList. I can also create a new cargo ship. Let's say the name of the ship is Mary. The year is 1930 or 1832, and the cargo capacity is 2,000 ton. Now, if I say see all cargo ships, I can see the cargo ship. If I want to search by a specific name, I can go and type Johan, and I can see that Johan ship. Okay, and then 6 will exit the application. So if we run it again now, and I want to see all of the cruise ships, then there's no cruise ships. So the problem now is we need to be able to save our data somewhere, persist our data on the computer. So we want to basically save to a text file in this example. Okay, so we're going to use a method, or create one method, and I'm going to call this method save data. So I'm going to say public static void save data. And now because I'm working with files, I'm going to have throws IO exception. You can also have try and catch blocks here. So I'm going to say throws exception there. And then I'm going to start working with the printWriter class. So I'm going to say printWriter output file equals new printWriter. And then I need to indicate the file name there. So let's just call the file name ships.txt. And remember, the printWriter class will create the file if it does not exist for the first time. If it exists, it will replace it. So in order now to write all of the data that's inside of my array list, I need to run through the array list to see what is there and then write that to the file. So I'm going to say I equals 0, then I less than ships.size, running through all of the elements in the ships array list, and then I++. Okay, so now the next thing that we want to do is in the file, basically, we want to have something that looks like this. So we're going to have the first argument, so let's say a CR for a cruise ship, then a comma, then the name of the ship, then a comma, then if it's a cruise ship, okay, for all of them we will need the year built, and then for the cruise ship, the last one will be the maximum number of passengers. So let's say max passengers. Will look something like that. But for a cargo ship, we will have something like CA, then the name, then the year, and then the maximum number, or the tonnage, the cargo capacity in tonnage. So this is basically what we want. So if it's a cruise ship, we're going to add a CR in the front. And if it's a cargo ship, we're going to add a CA at the front. So in this for loop now, we need to know whether this ship object that we're currently working with is a cruise ship or a cargo ship again. So I'm going to use that if statement again. If ships.getI, which will get me the object, either a cruise ship or a cargo ship. And then I'm going to test if it's an instance of, let's just take the first one, a cruise ship. So remember that instance of operator helps me to see if the object that I'm working with is a specific object. In this case, it's a cruise ship object. I'm testing if it's a cruise ship object. So if it is a cruise ship, then I'm going to say output file, start writing to the file. I'm going to say print a new line there to the file. The very first argument or the very first value will be CR, comma, and then I'm going to call ships.getI .toFile. Now, if you remember correctly, the toFile method, if it's a cruise ship, the toFile method will print out super.toFile. So it's going to print out the name, then a comma, then the year built, then a comma, and then the maximum number of passengers. So it works out nicely. Okay, and then the else part there will obviously be, if it's not a cruise ship, then it must be the other ones. I'm just going to copy and paste there. It will be the cargo ship. And again, I'm going to call ships.getI.toFile. So if it's a cargo ship now, it's going to run its toFile method, which calls the superclass. So it's going to run name, comma, year built, comma, cargo capacity and tonnage. Okay, so that's basically saving the data to the file, running through the for loop, and then when we are done with this, we will just say output file dot close the file, and then we are done. So just remember your throws I exception there, and now where do we want to save the data? So every time that I'm creating a new ship, whether it's a cruise or a cargo ship, I want to save the data afterwards. So I'm going to say save data, call it there. Okay, we're going to get to that error now, and I'm going to call save data here as well. Okay, now for this error, then everywhere that you call this save data method, you can see save data has got throws I exception. So in every method that you call save data, you must also have throws IO exception. So there I need to have throws IO exception. I need to have throws IO exception there as well. And ultimately, I will also need to have it in my main method. So let's just add it there as well. We're going to get to that later on. Okay, so this is basically then saving the data to a file. So if I can save now, and if I run this now, let's create a new cruise ship now. So I'm going to say the name of the ship, let's say Johan again, the year 1980, and 36 passengers. Let's create a cargo ship as well. Let's call it Mary again. Let's say 9060 and 2000. Let's add another cruise ship. Let's add the Titanic. And the year that the ship was built in, I don't know, let's say 1925. And the number of passengers, let's say 2000 passengers. And say OK. Now if I exit the application, you can go to your file section there, go to, this is the inheritance example, and you'll see there's the ships.txt that was created. And there's the three values. So the first one was a cruise ship, and the last one was also a cruise ship. But the middle one that we added was the cargo ship. So now you can see our data has been saved. So when I run this application again, I can just say, see all cruise ships. Okay, but in this case, we did not retrieve the data yet. So we need to do that part first. So let's go to exit the application and do that part first. But you can see it's nicely been saved to our ships.txt file. So now the next part will be to actually retrieve the data from that file right when the application starts. So let's create a new method for this one as well. So I'm going to go right to the bottom again, and we're going to create this method. So it's going to be public static void, and then I'm going to say populate ArrayList. Basically, add some data to my ArrayList right at the start. So where can we call this method? Basically, just after we've created our ships ArrayList, we will say populate ArrayList. Okay, so that's where we're going to call the method. So after this method is run, the ships ArrayList will be filled now with objects that we got from this ships.txt. Okay, so how do we do that? Let's go to that method. Right, in that method, I'm going to create a variable that says data from file. We need to read from the file. So in order to read from a file, you need to file object. So I'm going to say file equals new file and indicate the file that I want to read from. So in this case, it's ships.txt. And now it must be the exact same spelling of that ships.txt there. Then I'm going to use the scanner class in order to read using this file. So I'm going to use let's say input file equals new scanner. And then the scanner class will read input from the specific file that we indicated. And now again, it will wants this throws IO exception there, or your try catch block. Okay, so now we can start reading the data from the file. And there's a nice method that we can use with the while loop. The input file on the scanner object, input file dot has next, and that has next method will keep on reading data from the file until there's nothing more to read from the file, which means it gets to the end of the file, and now we need to stop the while loop. So in this while loop, I'm going to take that data from file equals going to the input file dot next line. So the next line method will basically go into my ships.txt and retrieve that one line. Okay, so what do we want to do with that one line? Because that one line now basically contains 1, 2, 3, 4 things, and they are separated by commas. So we need a way in order to get those values that are separated by commas, and that we call tokens. So we're going to use the StringTokenizer class, and I'm going to call it tokens equals new StringTokenizer. Now the StringTokenizer class takes as the first argument the string that you want to tokenize. So that's the string, the one line that's read from the file. And the second argument is your delimiter. Now the delimiter just means what is the one thing that separates my data from each other. And in this case, it's the comma. Okay, so now basically when I do this and I'm passing in data from file separated by commas, I will get in this tokens object those 1, 2, 3, 4 values. And then in order to extract them, I need to call the next token method. So if you call the next token method the first time, it's going to extract CR. The next time you call next token, it will extract Yuan. The next time you call next token, it's going to extract 1980. And the last time you're calling next token, it will extract the 36. So it's the same method, but it extracts different values inside of that tokens object. So what I'm going to do first is to test if tokens dot next token dot equals a CR. So basically what I'm doing, tokens dot next token will retrieve the very first one. So it's going to retrieve the CR or the CA or whatever, depending on which line it is. So if it's the very first line, it's going to retrieve the CR there. So I'm testing if that token that I've been extracted is a CR. In this case, it will be if it's the very first line. And then I know I can go and create a new CruiseShip object. So I'm going to say CruiseShip, let's call it ship equals new CruiseShip. And now for a cruise ship, we need to pass in the name, the year built, and the number of passengers. And now because we know that it is a cruise ship, it's exactly those values that I need to pass in. The name, the year, and the maximum number of passengers. So every time I'm calling next token now is extracting every one of those values. So basically I can just go and say, for the first argument, tokens dot next token. For the second argument, tokens dot next token. And then the last argument, let me just put that comma on that previous line. The last argument, remember, for a cruise ship is an integer. And the next token method returns a string. So I just need to go and say integer dot parse int, and then calling tokens dot next token. Okay, and that's basically all you need to do in order to create this object. So tokens.next token, every time you call it, it will start right at the start. The first time you call next token, extract CR, then Yuan, then 9080, then 36. So there's the first time we call it. That will extract the CR. The second time we call it is the name, Yuan. Third time we call it is the year, 1980. And then the last time that you're calling it will extract the 36. Okay, so there we set up the ship. So we're going to go to the ship's array list now and say .add, and I'm going to add that one ship. So every time it starts with a CR, it's going to create a core ship object and add it to the array list. Now what is the else part then? If it does not start with a CR, then it must be the CA, which means it's a cargo ship. So then we're going to do the exact same thing again. Remember there it extracts the first value. So it's already extracted. Testing if it's CR, it's not CR, it's now a CA. So it's already been extracted. So then we just keep on extracting. So these values will again be correct. But now it should not be a cruise ship. It should now be a cargo ship. So we're going to just change that to cargo and cargo, and then everything should be fine. And also just adding that ship to the ship's array list. And then we're done basically from there. We can just go and close the file. So we opened the file, we read from the file, and now after this while loop we can close the file. So we can just say input file dot close, and it closes the file. So let's run this now and see how it works. So now if I want to see all the cruise ships, okay, there it shows me all the cruise ships that currently in the file. So there's 2 cruise ships. It's Yuan and Titanic. So if we exit the application, let's look at the file quickly. Can you see there's 2 cruise ships, Yuan and Titanic? Okay, let's add another one there. Let's add another cruise ship. And let's say the ship's name is Peter. And that was built in 1999. And the maximum number of passengers is 1,000. So if you can see it saved that Peter already to the file. You can see it there. And then I can now go and say see all cruise ships. And there I can see the 3rd one. Even if I exit the application now, run it again, see all cruise ships, it's still there. Okay, now I can search for a ship by name, typing the name, let's say Peter there, and it shows me the information of Peter. So this is a nice little application that you can work with, a nice indication of how inheritance work, how polymorphism work, a bit of string tokenizers, saving to files, a very nice application to work with. Hope you've learned something from this video.